Morning. Thank you for having me. My name's Natasha Ammons, and I've been a insurance agent for the past 20 years, with about 16 of those dedicated exclusively to trucking insurance. With a little bit of time, I dabbled in non-emergency medical transportation as well. And so I'm happy to be here.
Yay! Perfect. I'm so glad to have you here. You have been very, very successful in what you have been doing. You have been in insurance for
Thanks.
2 decades and trucking for nearly 16 years. Firstly, that's a very, very long span of time.
It is.
So,
I feel old
yeah.
now.
And from what I know, you started from helping your dad launch one of South Jersey's first all digital insurance agencies. So, looking back,
Yes.
what did that early leap into digital teach you about innovation and resilience?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's an interesting question. So, when we first got started, we knew that we wanted to be, working from home. It was my dad's wife and my stepmom was disabled, and so we wanted to be there. And so that let us serve the customers faster. We could get it done over the phone. We didn't have to take cash, all this stuff that you would traditionally do in an office about 20 years ago. I mean, we were still counting change sometimes for car insurance payments. So we did start out car insurance from my dad's basement, and that let us be there for my mom. And then later on, that gave me a lot of flexibility when my daughters were born. But we just kind of figured it out as we went, and we had long days. We didn't have a lot of tech really. We were using email, an external hard drive, and cell phones really. And then we moved on to office phones and stuff like that. But the resilience there, I feel like, is just kind of quiet, steady progress and really taking care of the people that matter the most. So that'd be, my mom, the kids, and the customers, of course. And so as the years have gone by, now I'm at United Commercial and they acquired that family agency that we built. And so one of the reasons why I love it there is they've got that tech, those systems, that support system there. And so they've allowed me to continue growing that book of business and work remote and keep continuing, the work that my dad and I started.
Wow, that's a very, very inspiring and awesome journey that definitely taught us a lot. And as you said, it's so important to be there for the people who matter. And I think that that idea, which you were mainly focusing on, helped you build something so great. So,
Right.
congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Trucking insurance is a very niche but a critical space. You have called it new, complicated, and exciting when you first entered it. So, what is it about trucking specifically that hooked you and keeps you passionate about serving this industry?
Yeah, so back then, the first policy I wrote, we did car insurance, like I mentioned. And so at this
Mhm.
point, we'd gotten big enough where we'd moved into an office. And so one of the customers came in, he had been a high risk car insurance customer,
Uh-huh.
which isn't a thing anymore because I'm old. But he needed a trucking policy that would go through, this assigned risk commercial auto plan.
Mhm.
And if he didn't get it, the business was going to fall apart. His authority was going to go inactive. I didn't even know what a filing was or any of this. And so I'm like, hey, like you need it. Nobody else was willing to do it for him. So we kind of just, if you give me a challenge, I will dig into it. So I want to find out everything I can about it. So we struggled through it. We forgot the filing. We could only do 750,000, but we got it done. And he was just so thankful. It was his business, and so it was a big shift for me. I mean, the premiums are much bigger, I'll be honest with you, but back then they were not anything like they are now. But it was so complex, and he was so happy. And I love hearing driver stories and how they got started. What they're hauling. They're always somewhere new. So I'll talk to people in over the course of a day. I don't know how many different states
Yeah.
they're in. Really, we're working across, all the time zones everywhere. There's so much character to the industry, and it's, you're getting that in every conversation that you have, I think. And so I might talk to a general freight hauler, a tanker, a milk hauler. We've got hazmat, 6 or 7, 12 different operation types. And so each of those policies is going to be built a little bit differently for them. So it's interesting. It's really complex. It's really interesting, and it's never boring. It's never
Wow.
boring. So, it's a lot more exciting to me than car insurance was. And so back then, my dad had never written trucking. He had a background in the financial side, and then we did the
Mhm.
car insurance. But it was a way for us also to specialize. And it was kind of that time where it's like you're just being able to buy car insurance on phone and stuff like that. And so we're like, are we going to wither away, on the vine, just doing car insurance? And so it allowed us to kind of pivot and specialize. And then really we ended up dialing in really on new ventures. And so that's where a lot of my background in educating comes from, because when they're new, you don't always know everything unless you have
Definitely.
trucking
Yeah.
experience of some type. And so you will sometimes spend a little bit more time, getting that base level education for a new venture versus talking to somebody that's been in business for, 6 or 7 years.
Wow, that's very, very awesome. And to be honest, I have never heard such an like different and amazing perspective as to how it actually works. Like for me, because I'm so new to the sector, for me, I was like, okay, logistics is like transportation,
Right.
supply chain, this procurement, but like getting to know the trucking side. And when I read about when I saw your LinkedIn profile, I was like, trucking insurance. I was like, oh yeah, trucks also do need insurance. I was like, that's a very,
Right.
very big container that really has a higher chance of getting into accidents and stuff like that. So what you are doing is extremely essential and very big necessity for people who are actually driving the trucks, and the vehicle itself is so big. So wow. And your
It's
journey
very
is
big.
really
Yeah.
inspiring, yeah. And I think like from this, I would like to ask my next question. Like, it's such
Okay.
an important insurance is such an important part. So how does building trust with the clients come about? Like, how do you approach it?
Right. Yeah. And so that's pretty interesting question too. And so, um, depending on who you'd ask, we'd say there is kind of like sometimes we run into these issues with trust and loyalty and stuff, right? In transportation in general, because we're all competing for, no matter what side you're on, what sector you're in, it's all coming down to the bottom line, right? It has to. It all comes down to the dollars and cents. And so the first, 10 years or so was mostly those new ventures. And so I think when you can help people understand what they need, so
Mm-hmm.
insurance is like boring and you have to have it. It's one of their top three expenses. And that first year, it's going to be what can sometimes make or break you from the,
True.
the cost standpoint. So on the
Mm-hmm.
new venture side, it's really just, hey, sometimes you got to tell somebody what an LLC is. Sometimes you have to walk them through, setting up their DOT. And then they know what they want to do. They don't know what they
True.
can do, and they don't know how much it's going to pay. And so I think at the ground level there, the education is what helps build the trust.
Mm-hmm.
And then now what I do is I mostly focus on people, we're quoting people that have been in business for a while. And so I can still do both, of course, but it's a little bit different conversation. So if you've been in business for a few years, you pretty much know what you're doing or what you want to get into doing. You may have had 1 to 3 or 4 agents that you didn't love, didn't hate, could be better. So you know what you're looking for in an insurance agent. There's a lot of service that goes into these. And so when we're having those initial phone calls, I think what can help build the trust is your level of knowledge, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
as transactional. So we might talk about it, might never sell you a policy. So I've just realized I'm a salesperson in the last couple of years. I'm like, I just never really thought of myself as a salesperson. I do
Yeah.
sell insurance, of course, but if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't fit, I don't want to do it. If I get a weird feeling, I don't want to bind it. And there's things like that that we'll look out for on our side, of course. But I think the trust level comes from them knowing, like, you can call someone and get a trucking quote, and they might have been a
True.
car insurance agent up until yesterday, right? And they're trying to pivot. And so, like me, that first one, they don't know exactly what they're doing. And so, the longer you've been in business, the more you can say, "Hey, this agent knows about trucking
True.
in general." And then
Yeah.
long term, it comes from showing up and answering the phone, returning text, sending out certificates long term, and just really so now I'm a W-2 employee, full disclosure. They bought
Mm-hmm.
my family's agency, but up until then I was self-employed and my dad and I ran the agency together. And so as a
Mm-hmm.
business owner, you do learn to treat those people like, hey, this is my business and I'm helping you, with your business. And so that can make a big difference too, where we're not looking at you as dollar signs, but as partners. And so that mind shift
Definitely.
can be really different when we're looking at, hey, we're partners in business. You're not just my customer, of course. I mean, I depend on them to survive, and we all depend on them for everything, really. So I depend on them for almost literally almost
Yeah.
everything in that regard. So, and still sometimes They think they'll go find a better rate. They'll think they'll go find a better agent. Sometimes they find a better rate, maybe. Sometimes they come back, and that's all a part of it as well. So you just do your best to service it. But when the market gets hard, it's pretty interesting to test those more loyalties than trust.
Yeah.
It can test some of those bonds pretty good because we're coming down to every penny counting, of course, lately, for sure.
Definitely. And like, to be honest, I think the most beautiful thing that you said was that you never realized that you were actually doing sales. I think it was because you were so involved more on the aspect of like, you should
Yeah.
know what you're getting yourself into rather than like, I want to sell you my insurance. It was more like
Right.
helping them out, which made the difference. And as you said, seeing them as your partners makes more difference than being like, I'm gonna get money out of you.
Yeah, definitely. And some agents are really transactional like that, I'm sure, and so are some customers. And so they tend to come and go. And some of the ones that are a little less transactional, insurance prices will go up and down, like everything else. And so we want them, sorry, to have the best price, obviously, because that makes it
Definitely.
easier for them to pay their bill. It makes it easier for them to stay insured,
Hmm.
and it all, snowball effects into the economy 100%. So everything that happens here in trucking, I feel like you'll see it will push off into other sectors of the economy as well. It affects everything.
True. That is so true. And like, I feel that so many years in the industry, you have definitely worked with anyone and everyone, like from brand new owners to people who have just been in the industry as long as you have been. So, what's one recurring mistake you see that carriers make when it comes to insurance or risk management? And how can they actually get it right?
So we were talking about this yesterday. So I think one of the biggest mistakes can be, and I don't know that they don't realize it. It's just there's a lot going on when you first get set up. But long term, if I could correct one thing, it would be creating the culture of safety from the day you click pay on that DOT number. And so the culture of safety is one of the things that's also kind of crashing down around us in the industry and creating all these higher premiums and things like that. And so just the safety is really, very important, really, really important. I don't know how to do it. And so as you grow, these drivers need to be trained. And so the culture of safety is kind of eroded in a lot of the businesses that started really fast. Like during the pandemic, I've never been so busy. I thought, hey, I'll sit here and we'll chill. And, the kids were homeschooling and stuff. And what ended up happening is we were the busiest that we've ever been because, trucking saved everything during that time. But some of those people that started really, really fast, they had no idea. They had no trucking background whatsoever. Maybe they had a CDL, maybe it was a box truck, or whatever it might be. But the safety is not there. And so if the owner doesn't have that culture, that mentality of, hey, everybody's going to be trained 100%, we're going to have regular meetings, we're going to look at these trucks together all the time. It you can't fake that. So it will eventually come out in inspections and losses and things like that. And so that's been really interesting to me is in the beginning when I was writing new ventures, you didn't really, I mean, you would talk about it, but you didn't really they didn't have any information there because they were just getting started and it was just one person, so it wasn't something that you talked about. Whereas now if I'm talking to a new venture, that is part of what we'll talk about is, hey, everything that happens on that inspection report is going to hurt next year if it's not good. If it's not good, you're not going to like it come renewal time.
True.
And so I think it's the culture of the business and it needs to be based on safety. That would probably be just the biggest thing for me.
True. Wow. And that is definitely true. I think that what you just said is also on the side of looking at the long-term idea rather than the short-term way. Like if you ensure safety, then you're going to have long-term profits. Even as the owner,
Right.
you're going to know that, okay, I'm not losing a lot on damages or even losing a lot of money through accidents or some other ways. If safety is ensured, then they're gonna it's not just you guys with the insurance companies, but even them who are gonna make long-term profits. That's how I would like to see
Right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's everyone in our industry is looking at that. So the carriers are the ones that are vetted the most. And
True.
so that's really where it becomes important. So brokers are looking at it, we're looking at it, the underwriters are looking at it, the drivers are looking at it, when they come on. And so I feel like the focus has just been like, how much am I going to pay for insurance? How much does this equipment cost? And they don't put anywhere near that amount of energy into the expectations of the safety program, the compliance. I mean, you got to have driver files, there's paperwork out the wazoo. And if it goes wrong, like at a really bad inspection or something, you can't fix it fast. And so then we'll find ourselves saying, hey, you're up for renewal and that's $50,000 for one truck. I mean, that's insane. And that's something you can't fix and it's something you can't afford. And so it does result in, people shutting down, unfortunately. Whereas a pre-trip inspection may have avoided that whole thing. If you did it or you forced the drivers to do it or you forced them to prove that they did it, they might have caught that. And so it's a real rock and a hard place sometimes because their margins are spread so thin right now. But safety should be the most important thing, 100% in my
Yeah,
opinion. Yeah,
that
safety
is
and
so
good,
true.
equipment in good working order.
Definitely. And I think this again moves back to the idea of education, like knowing how to do it right, not feeling way too intimidated. And I think
Right.
that brings light to your amazing creative venture, Truck You. Firstly,
Yes.
love the name. Really love the name.
Thank you.
So please tell our audience more about Truck You and how it is making trucking insurance less intimidating and more engaging.
Okay, yeah. So Truck You is relatively new. It's something my coworker and I, Jessica, started, and she pretty much came up with the name, to be honest, and she really liked that. And so I think, I mean, with my even with my 20 years, and she's got about, I think, almost 5 years, just related to trucking insurance, but she has a family history of trucking, like, everyone in her family's in
Okay.
trucking. And so even knowing all that, it still kind of feels like risky, because it's one thing that we
True.
we know what we know, right? But putting
Mhm.
it out there
Yeah,
publicly in the way that we want to say it, you really
true.
don't know how it's going to be received. And so
Mm-hmm.
the feedback on it has been pretty good. Which, as we were in a podcast, I'm like, you make me blush. Like, people enjoy it, which is nice. I didn't
True.
know if people want to read about insurance really, but it kind of comes down to, we'll have powwows in the morning and we're just kind of talking
Yeah.
about this will happen. I got a question on that. Sometimes we'll see waves of like trends, I guess you'd call it, where somebody
Uh-huh.
put a dumb video on Facebook. And people
True.
are now
Yeah.
trying to change everybody that we know is trying to change their garaging address or whatever it might be. They'll start doing kind of some weird things with the insurance.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about it. And then we're like, hey, wouldn't this be great if everybody knew this, or if we could share this with
Yeah.
the people in our network that it would be important to.
Uh-huh.
And so kind of just explaining it in a way that makes sense, and kind of filling a gap. Some of the stuff you'll find when you Google it yourself is like really
Mhm.
salesy or really basic, and it might not always apply to, your everyday uses when you're thinking
True.
about it. So it's been really exciting and scary at the same time, and a lot of extra work after hours. For sure.
That is so true. But to be honest, like people like me who are so new to the industry, we would love to know something which is like fun and less stressful when it comes to learning something new. Like
Right.
whenever I think about logistics, even when I tell my friends, they're like, what exactly is it? Isn't it just taking goods from one place to another? And then when I throw words which are like
Yeah, that's
theories and
basic.
numbers, they are just like, what? And it's like they
Right.
get nervous and they get stressed out. And I feel like getting to know about a different industry, especially like yours, is so important. Like trucking insurance, one, it's a necessity. Two, it is something that's interesting. Like because we don't know much about it, it would be awesome to learn more. And I don't know about others, but I'm definitely gonna give it a shot and learn from your different ways of making people understand the sector more.
Nice. Yeah,
And
yeah. So
Natasha, you
sometimes I
have.
find myself rereading them. I'll go back and read it, and it's nice to have something to reference. I maybe it makes insurance more exciting. I don't know. For trucking, they know it because they have to have it, and so kind
Yeah.
of giving some of those gaps and making sure everybody knows what's up is the main
Mhm.
idea of it for sure. So
True. And that's a very great idea. It's like making it less intimidating, I think, is the most important thing, because as
yeah,
soon as people read tough big words which they don't know, they're just gonna be like, scroll, scroll,
yeah.
scroll. I don't want to get scared or feel dumb in the first part as to like not knowing something. So great venture, firstly. And you have been doing so much. Oh my God, like being in the industry, trying something new, it's a great thing. And I would love to point out that that is a sign of leadership. So please tell us that in your career journey, whether building agencies, managing clients, or co-founding Truck You, what's one leadership lesson that you have learned the hard way?
That's interesting question too. And so kind of thinking about it, so like with the, looking at it from the current state of the market, and like when my dad retired, like he said, I just want to get off this roller coaster ride, because it's like they
True.
start, they go out, especially those new
Yeah,
ventures are kind of tough. And so, probably like being resilient there would be a big one for me, is just kind of how to stay steady on, this roller coaster that we're riding in the industry. It's very unpredictable. The rates are all over, the market shift, and, people can burn out pretty easily. And you
true.
have to ride that wave. You have to ride that wave there. And so this year I've said a lot, I tied that knot, and, and I'm holding on. And so since 2009, we've definitely seen a lot of ups and downs. Like this just feels
Mhm.
like the longest, dip that we've been in. And so sometimes I'm that calm voice, talking people off the ledge or the problem solver. And then sometimes I'm low key panicking as well.
True.
And so the hardest part of it, I feel like, because, right now can be just staying positive, because everybody's like, the rates are horrible, insurance is horrible, everything's horrible, there's so much fraud, this, that, the other. And I'm like, sometimes I just want to have, positive conversations
True.
about it. And so we do typically always come out of it. I've been through enough of
Mhm.
those cycles, but
Uh-huh.
holding that line and remaining positive about it is kind of the best thing I've been
Tough,
able
yeah.
to do right now.
Perfect. And that's a
And
very big lesson, I think. Like for us, we just experience it sometimes, but for you, you literally deal with it. And
it's
I
every
think even
day.
the clients must be different. Some are like, okay, some of them must be super hyper to even deal with when they're
Right.
like, oh, I need my claim, give me the money back, this and that. You might be
Yeah, it's
having,
tough.
yeah.
It's been tough, talking to my boss, and he's like, I'm like, the prices are not the greatest right now. And so
Yeah.
that's not always the feedback that you're getting. And so yes, it
Uh-huh.
is August 22nd and 5 days a week. I've had to talk to people that don't like what they're paying for insurance and are not getting paid what they need to operate, per mile. And so sometimes it's hard to come in and still smile, and it's like 10 phone calls in a row where everybody's upset, not directly at me, but they're upset with me, and then I've got to fight with underwriters, and they're going to keep the price the same, and everything's expensive. And so that definitely can be it. And then when it's good, it's really good, but we still just fight for the best prices we can get, of course, because we don't want people to go out of business or have to pay, $2,000 more a year,
True.
when nothing has changed. And so it's been like a battleground, I guess we'll say, lately.
True. Oh my God, you literally just answered my next question. Like, where do you think the industry is heading? But I think I got my answer. But
So, yeah,
hmm
and so I think about this one a lot, because I'm like, there's a lot of issues and
yeah,
all this fun stuff, but I think that a lot of them are connected, and
yeah,
there's no easy answers to fixing everything, of course. And so
yeah.
what we're currently seeing in multiple sectors of it, I think, is what I've started to call like kind of like the great reset. So we're having this overcorrection. We had all these carriers come in. We sold them a ton of insurance policies. They went out and did their best. They're crashed or forgot to change the trucks, and they lost the cargo and whatever it might be. But that is being overcorrected either through the rates that they're getting paid or through the insurance companies. And so I do see it shifting. We've got a lot of the technology coming in where the insurance companies are adopting AI, and they want to connect to their dash cams or ELDs. That's not my jam. That's not my favorite, sharing data, but that's the future, of course. And so the regulators are paying attention now, as we get, this outcry from the regular people when something horrible happens, of course. But for me, I think we should always focus on that safety. And it's the internet loses its mind when there's a really bad accident, because they are horrible. But there's lots of accidents every single day, and it wasn't just because one wrong move, one stupid move, one whatever it might be. Um, But for me, it's kind of like I feel like it's like kind of like a shakedown. And so some of these carriers that aren't meant to be here will get shut down, and it is tough. And that's not my place to say whether they should be here or not. But
Yeah.
what will, kind of rise up in their place, I think, are the carriers who care about safety, the training, the compliance, driver quality, and
Mhm.
long-term trucking operations. So we want operations that are going to make it, 20, 30 years, where we see
Yeah.
a lot of them close down at 5 if we're lucky. They used to be like the first and second year was the toughest. It's
Yeah.
been really hard for them to grow. And I think
Mhm.
in that space, the role of the insurance agent will be really, really important because we're kind of bridge that gap between here's what
Yeah.
you need to do and here's what the insurance companies want.
Mhm.
And so we're just hoping that we always come out of it, is what I say. It's just this one's really
True.
long, and we are losing a lot of good carriers while we wait for the
True.
correction to be completed.
Definitely. Mhm.
And so kind of what I feel like my role is to build that safety culture myself, right? A culture around the education and the coverages, so they know what they're buying, they feel confident in the policy, and they can trust that the agent and the agency that they're with has their back no matter, no matter what comes.
True. And I would again like to point out you're already doing a great work at it. And
Oh,
not
thanks.
just like you're doing it for a living, you're doing that by actually educating them, making them aware of it. But even the Truck You initiative is a very out of like a very creative venture that you have come up with, which is going to spread a lot of awareness, which is needed, I feel. And I hope and genuinely pray that each and every person prioritizes safety and long-term goals over the short-term idea of like
Right.
trying to just mess around and get done with things. And my last and most important question will be, what is the one piece of advice you would want to tell women in the logistics sector who are just gonna enter like me to know about your industry if I wish to enter it in the next few years? What should I
Yeah,
remember?
that's a good question. So, as because insurance traditionally was a male dominated as well, and I
Mm-hmm.
would say if you find what you like to do, don't quit. I personally haven't had a ton of that kind of adversity. I'll be honest with you because I worked remote, right? So I didn't. I
Yeah.
worked with my dad and I worked remote, but I have worked at offices where that's there. And so say if you find what you love, just focus on that and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it for any reason, because you can.
Mhm.
Spend your time educating yourself and finding out what works. And networking can be one of your strongest tools, I've found. So you
Mhm.
find one other woman that does that as well, to mentor you, and that can be a huge thing, having a team. And so my team for the most part has been women here at United Commercial Insurance. And so
Yeah.
if we don't know, we ask each other, we find out, but we do support each other. And I think having that network there, even if it's in your office or if somebody on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, can
Uh-huh.
be a thing that makes a huge difference, in your confidence levels, and your drive, of course. So, we're always push each other, go figure it out, or we'll help each other figure it out. And so I didn't really know that I needed that network of women until I had it, So it was just kind of me and my immediate family for most of my life working. And so it's been something that I've benefited from greatly.
Wow, perfect. Me and each and every person watching this is definitely gonna remember what you just advised us. We pray and hope we get those mentors. And to be very honest, talking to you, I'm sure that there are people like you out there who are just willing to help, to teach, to
Yeah.
impart the wisdom. So pray for the best, hope for the best mentors to come who are gonna guide me. And I think in the next 10, 20 years, I'll also be like, oh, it's been some years in the industry and I
Yeah.
have done this.
And it's it's a huge industry, right? And so there's enough for everyone. I've always felt. Other people
Mhm.
might feel differently, but like we've got other people that were insurance agents that we're friendly with, and we're excited to meet them when we go to truck shows and stuff like that. And so
Yeah.
that's been one of the things. When I worked with my dad, we never really left. It was just the phone. And so the last 3.5 years, I've gotten to go to truck shows and meet people, the
Uh-huh.
drivers, and all there's women out there too. You don't get to talk to as many
Yeah.
women drivers, which is
Yay.
also exciting. 'Cause I'm like, can I get some women instead of getting yelled at by grown men for 9 months a year? But um, it's really funny. I didn't know that I needed it until I
Yeah,
had it. So now I'm like, if I didn't have, all you ladies here, I don't know if I'd be
true.
making it through every day. It definitely wouldn't be as
Exactly.
much fun, and it would be much more of a struggle for sure.